are we doing time? 20 minutes. I'm going to maybe quickly start the next stage and then maybe do a time lapse. So let's make a new object. I'm going to move that out of the way. I'm putting it on my second screen, which you can't see. Also the video chops off the bottom of my screen. But there we go. So I'm going to start off with my reference material. To try and guess that size and shape, I'm going to start with about a metre across. We can always resize it later. So I'm going to start off, I'm just going to plug in, this is one of the delights of using Lightwave. Let's say width 1 metre, height 0.8 metre, depth. Let's just see how that goes. Put it in the middle, get zoomed in. Where did it go? Down there. Now I might want to put a bit of a radius on here. I don't normally bother, but there's not much else going on with this model. It shouldn't be too hard to skin it, though it does increase that to a first degree of approximation. I think it's got that thing where it's actually, yeah, y-axis, x. How does that work? Maybe it's the smooth edge. Depends on the, yeah, so how it does that depends on that. I think I could probably spare the polygons, but it's going to be viewed at a different distance, and I think maybe even how's 10 going to look? I can always curve it up a bit afterwards. The problem with Lightwave is that there's no smoothing groups. It's done a different way. And I think actually maybe I don't want that curve at the top when you see what happens with it. So let's call it a new surface aircon. Colour doesn't matter, smoothing matters. So now it's smooth, it's different, but if you just plop that into Unreal, it renders horribly. So I don't know if it's the best way to do it. So I select aside, expanded the selection, delete, paste. That's uncoupled that. Expand, delete, paste. So that will create a more defined edge there where it doesn't smooth, and it will hopefully stop it looking like crap. So that's not a bad place to start. So I'm now going to just slap on, bring that across, go to texture, slap on an old, I'll do this first, another window. So this surface, this texture has a UV projection with texture image, and I'll load in the one I just made, pardon me, and it won't have all the whiz-bang material properties. But that's basically it, and that's obviously a mess. But you get an idea if I just manually, I don't like the fiddliness of this all. I'm going to move that off, and I'm going to keep that, and we're done with that one. And just going to, so that's going to be my front. I might even just make that a separate thing, and I'm going to in detail create a part, just call it front, so that I can easily select it again, and it's unattached to anything else. I'm going to change it to planar. I think it's Z. There, it's back to front. So I could manually change that. Let's look at the UV texture. Whoa, so it's still messed up all the stuff around it. Let's change that texture to the one we just added. Let's hide everything else. Whoa, so it is really, yeah. So I'm gonna, so cutting and pasting didn't quite do it. I need to, whatever that key was, do that to sort of untangle it from other things. I forget what that word was, but there's a word. It's back to front. Easiest thing to do is just do a transform, -100, 100, and just to make it easy to work with, I'm going to add an offset so it ends up in the same place but reversed. So that's the beginnings of it. Ooh, looking nice in the back. Not. I am going to, for now, keep the back because it's going to be mounted on a bracket, and the bracket might make it extend away from the wall. I'm going to maybe have some tubes coming out, which will add quite a few polys. At some point I'm going to maybe do a time lapse. I don't know when that is, with hindsight, when I get bored. This can also maybe turn off the radius because I can't be bothered. I mean, nothing is ever this sharply defined. It looks terrible up close, but I don't think you're going to get properly up close. So that is a sort of beginnings of a bracket. Not quite sure where I'm going to go with that. Look at my reference. So I could maybe define those edges, yeah. And then it's got the thing going back. Right, why not? So I'm going to go back to my top view, and that's looking down. Where's that going to be? So first off, this is probably a no-no from a modelling point of view, but I want to define those bits. I'm going to come off and just deselect that and just simply do a bevel like that. I think I will manually squidge that in, which will probably make it look horrible because as soon as you do that, it starts smoothing. But that might be okay. But what I'll probably do, I mean, if I can be bothered to tidy it up, to properly tidy it up, I'd probably merge that and move that. Maybe I'll do it now. So I'm going to cut and paste so all the points are now, and isolate so I know that these points hopefully are decoupled from their corresponding points, and I'm going to move them up to there. Oh, that wasn't a good idea. Let me think about this. I basically want to knife, yeah, that's, I don't know why I was doing that. There's probably some deep useful reason. This is more work than I'd probably go into. Fuck off. Right, it's not letting me do that. Right, I really don't appreciate that. Yeah. I mean, if there's some deep truth underlying why it's doing this, I'd love to know. Oh, do. Right. So that's what it didn't. Yeah. Work in progress. Going to merge them. This is. I mean, this is an example of me being a bad modeler. So I think this is working towards a better model. Maybe if I do that, no, that's not going to work, is it? Like I know what I wanted to do. I was stymied for some odd reason. I don't know the problem. If I whatever that thing was that uncouples it, that sometimes fixes it. It's just a horrible. Yeah, this is where I start doing nothing. Right, so this works apparently. So let's merge. So I'm getting the same result. I don't know why it didn't work. I'm probably doing something stupid, but why I couldn't knife that, I don't know. Because now the end result is the same. Okay. I'm going to merge that. Right, so now I can delete that point, can I? Right, so that's merged, so that's now looking a little better, rather than, well, that's going to be invisible, so I'm just going to get rid of that. So now I can just get rid of that point, and we're back to a slightly more sane construction. This whole thing I'm going to call white metal. It's going to be, let's get the surface edge. So I need to set up the UV map and no image map. I'm going to deal with this in Unreal, and I am going to just, wait, what's that? What are you doing? Right, so that's not properly right. I'm just kind of just winging it here. If I'm going to be really good, I'm going to get rid of the unwanted bit of that so that the excess bit underneath isn't going to waste any time. I want to undo that and keep that bit. Alright, so, and if you're going to, I guess, finesse it, you want to put in some detail with screws or something. That's a bit much, maybe. Or is that a bit much? So I may add a screw or two, and if you had a texture with screws in it, that would look nice too, and maybe I could knock one up. Before I duplicate it, I'm just going to select all. I'm just going to add an atlas, which doesn't really, let's get rid of that. So to focus that, that's not going to look great, but it will give you, I don't know, a texture that's sort of uniformly sized for each side. So if this is not something particularly prominent, it's just got a thing like, you know, textured metal, which doesn't, you can't see any tiling in it. I'm just going to do a thing where I double the texture size. It depends on what I'm using in Unreal, but that would probably, oh, let's save it. Icon A, because I anticipate having more than one icon. Bring everything back. Okay, so multiply, just copy it across. Let's see, there was a bit of the thing that goes up. So stop. I don't like Lightwave, I'll be honest. But it's what I know, and I have to stick with what I know. Actually, I'm going to just bring that out a bit. Oh. So for those ones, I'm going to just, I should probably have waited before copying it. But essentially what I want to do is just bevel that up a bit. It might be visible from the side, so I'll have to do it properly. I don't need the back faces. And that is gonna need some work, maybe. And maybe it needs to go back further to be visible nicely from the back. Look. I should have turned symmetry on. Alright, and I'm just going to do, actually the side is, it's not far off. Let's just get back into UV texture. Going to resize just by hand. excuse me. That's not going to work, so I'm going to make a section let's just get that off there. Oh. Maybe just bevel that out a bit. So that looks a little bit better. So that's more or less done. Can be improved, but there we go. I'm going to define a collision hole. Should be fairly straightforward. Oh no. And we're done. Now in this program, this is very exciting, I have to name the layers, aircon A, and if you want to define collisions you prefix it with UCX underscore. It would actually be easier to do this in Unreal Engine because it does its own collisions, but I quite like to have everything set up. So that's a single convex polygon. Doesn't have to be a cube. In this case that's fine. So that's the object with the box around it. And what I've forgotten to do is make a light map. And I'm just going to see what happens if I make a basic light map. I put in a big gap size because the algorithm for this is pretty bad. So there we go, that's Lightwave's best go at it. Unreal Engine will make its own light map if you import it, if you ask it to. It'll probably be better than that. I don't want a big light map size. There's going to be a big repeated thing. It doesn't need a big light map size. If I merge everything, it should work better. I might have to separate things out again because it'll look rubbish. So I'm going to just take off the front face and take off the back face. That ought to make a nice atlas map. Let's see. No. I guess it did. So that's a continuous UV island. Same for there. That's a little better. What's that? That's the bracket. What I can do is to... I think I define a different detail set. So I'll separate by part. No. Segment size surface. No. So that's not great, but I'll stick with that for now. And now I want to export into FBX for... and it's named fine. So now we're about to see it in game. go into the engine. There's our material waiting to be used. I'm going to move that off there. Electrics, some meshes of things, import, models, electric, what did I call it? Aircon. And this is, I forget when I changed these settings, those are slightly modified probably. No smoothing group option because, you know, Lightwave doesn't do that. Degenerate tangent basis sounds like something is wrong, so I'm going to go back here and here's my statistics. It looks alright. That probably means there's polygons overlapping each other, so I've got a duplicate polygon somewhere. Who knows where? So the light map's often a clue. Nothing. Okay, and these things, this is where, I mean, that's the points that haven't been moved. I don't know quite what it means, but it just means that it's not optimized. It's going to be inefficiently rendered because the more you have the UVs joined up into single islands, the better it renders, and this doesn't do that very well. Nothing seems obviously amiss. What's that? Well, while I'm here, yeah, I need to keep that. Probably something to do with the beveling, that often creates problems. All this thing I did there. Sometimes... No, honestly I don't know. So let's proceed regardless. So go away. There's the aircon. Let's move it there. I'm going to find the material. And it's that one. So that's our backside. And find any old, for now, material for the... oh, moved on in there? No. Oh, I haven't put in the wires for it. But it's possible that I won't bother. Grey metal paint might work. And the textures, yeah, about the right sort of resolution. I'm going to save it, find in the content browser, get this stuff out of the way. So now, hopefully, I can stick my air conditioner in. The collisions aren't set on these buildings, so it won't work properly. Well, near enough. So I don't know how it's going to light, how the light map's going to work, and it probably needs to be stretched a bit. No, that's more or less it. Oh, I was going to round off the edges of those brackets, if I can be bothered. I can't be bothered right now, so that's the air conditioner in-game, start to finish, and then I can stack a few of them, and I could resize them, but then they won't work so well as instance message. There we go again. But there we go. So that is an air conditioner, start to finish. Yeah, it looks horrible. I need to perhaps redo those textures. Oh, I do need to redo those textures, but you get the basic gist. And yeah, there we go. Bye bye.